Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Yehuda Glick from the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation with a new live. Today, we'll be speaking about a very sensitive issue. We're going to be speaking about saving lives in the time of coronavirus. But I want to start from the very, very, very beginning. When God created man, He created man in the image of God. And in Genesis chapter 9, God tells man a very important obligation. It's quite obvious, but God repeats it again and again. Whoever sheds the blood, I'm in Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. Whoever sheds blood of souls, whoever sheds blood of a man through man, shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God, He is made man. If you pour somebody else's blood, if you murder somebody, then you deserve to be murdered. Your blood deserves to be poured. Because God created man in His image. And when we learn this very first sentence, we ask, what is the connection between because God created man in God's image to the obligation of not shedding somebody else's blood? And actually, the commentators give three different explanations. Why, I'm repeating the sentence, whoever sheds the blood of a man, shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God He has made man. What is the connection between the image of God He has made man to the obligation that he who pours someone else's blood, his blood should be shed? Three different commentaries. Number one, whoever pours the blood of somebody else, his blood should be shed because the person he killed was created in the image of God. So if you killed somebody who was created in the image of God, you have no right to live. That's one explanation. Explanation number two, he who pours somebody's blood, his blood should be shed because God created man in His image. The man who killed, a person who kills, was created in the image of God. If he kills, he has no right to stay alive. Because our only reason we're living in this world is because we give life to others. So the first explanation, it's talking about the person who was killed. The second explanation was talking about the person who killed. But there's this third explanation. And I think it's probably the most deepest one. It says that he who sheds blood through blood, his blood should be shed, for in the image of God He made man. Who is responsible for the blood of others? It's we as a society. And God says, I created man in the image of God, and therefore man, society, has to be in charge and make sure our human life in this world is based on very deep, godly morality. And therefore, as a society, we are responsible. It's our responsibility that nobody else's blood is poured. So as again, and we'll repeat this because it's very important for the rest of what we're saying. He who pours somebody else's blood, he who sheds somebody else's blood, God says in Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, his blood should be shed because God created man in the image of God. And three explanations. Explanation number one, talking about the one killed. Explanation number two, talking about the one who killed somebody. And explanation number three, it talks about mankind as a society. So we know, and it's quite obvious, that you're not allowed to pour somebody else's blood. But then, in the book of Genesis, the Torah, in the book of Leviticus, the Torah teaches us some greater things. God says in Leviticus 19, God says, speak to the congregation of the children of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Shalom Beverly from Texas, welcome. God says, you shall be holy because I am holy. Again, listen carefully. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, I am holy. And what does it tell us? It gives us a list of different obligations. The very first one is You have to fear your father and mother. The relationship between God and man goes through father and mother. But then it goes on to a whole list of different obligations. And then there's a list. It begins, in verse 13, you shall not oppress your fellow. You're not allowed to rob somebody else. You're not allowed to be cruel to somebody else. You have to pay somebody's salary on time, not to wait till the next morning. Give it to him that day. Of course, you're not allowed to oppress somebody else. It continues. You shall not curse a deaf person. And in front of a blind person, you shall not place a stumbling block. And you shall fear your God, I am the Lord. And then it goes on to verse 16. You shall not go around as a gossip monger, and you shall not stand by the shedding of your fellow's blood. Now listen carefully. Usually in life, we understand that if you're somebody who's nice to somebody else, he's considered a kind person. Somebody who's cruel to somebody, somebody who's mean to somebody else is considered a cruel person. But somebody who ignores somebody else, we would say, okay, he's not a very nice person, he's not an extremely kind person, but he's not a cruel person. And the Torah teaches us that we have an obligation. Shalom to the Hutchinson family from Memphis, Indiana. The Torah teaches us that we who were created by the image of God, we have an obligation to be holy because God is holy. And we have an obligation, of course, to be kind to others. And therefore, we have to care for others. And therefore, when we have a field, we leave over some for the poor people. We have to care for those who are weak in our society. We're not allowed to steal, of course. These are part of being holy. You're not allowed to lie to somebody else. You're not allowed to. But also, you're not even allowed to curse a deaf person who doesn't hear. And you're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of a blind person who doesn't see, meaning giving somebody a wrong advice, because you have to fear God. But then it goes on, and the final one, you shall not stand by the shedding of your fellow's blood. Meaning, if I know somebody else is in danger, I have to be there to protect his life. I cannot ignore. If I see somebody drowning in the ocean, I cannot drive by as if I didn't see. I cannot ignore somebody who's in danger. I am not allowed to ignore somebody whose life is in danger. If I see somebody who's about to be run over, or I see somebody who's wounded and he needs to be taken to the hospital, I have an obligation to take him to the hospital. It's not a matter of not being kind. The Torah refers to us as an obligation to be holy people because God created us and He wants us to be like Him. And it's our obligation not to ignore. Now, why am I telling you this whole thing? I want to share with you a story. This weekend, I went to visit a condolence visit to a family who the father of the family, his business was going very, very low because of the coronavirus, and he had to feed many families, many of his workers. And the fear of the fact that his business was going so low caused him to take his own life in his hands, and he committed suicide. This was a very sweet person, loved person, a man of family. He had children. He's a man in his 50s, young guy. He had a few grandchildren as well, but he was the nicest as nice can be. He was the kindest as kind can be. He was the sweetest as sweet can be. But his understanding that his responsibility for others that he had to feed was in danger, and he took his life in his hands. And I came over to visit the family. And when you go to visit these kinds of families of people with suicide, they have two kinds of feelings. One, they're angry at why did you do that? How did you do such a terrible thing? And they're angry at him. The other feeling, they feel feelings of blame for themselves. It's my fault. How could I not have seen what's going on? Both of these feelings are very negative feelings. The anger at somebody who did something like this, it doesn't promote us. It leaves us drowning in this in a feeling that he, why did he do something crazy, it's a terrible thing. Also, the feeling that it's our fault doesn't promote us at all. But it does. Both those feelings. It leaves among us the understanding how much we love this person. And how sad we are that this person took his life in his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people in these days that are losing jobs. They're walking around amongst us. They may look strong, they may look happy, but if we don't inquire and find out how they're doing, how they're managing, how they're overcoming. I'm talking to every one of you. If somebody who's listening to me right now, if you have your own business and your business is going low and you feel that you're about that you're at a dead end. You're not at a dead end. You're not at a dead end. Taking your life in your hands is not going to solve anything. Talk it over. Share what's going on inside of you with your friends. People are here want to help you. If anybody here is listening to me and you're in distress, share with somebody else what's going on in you. Tell your friend. Tell your neighbor. People will be happy to give you advice. Don't be ashamed. It's nothing to be ashamed of to request help. But it's also our responsibility. If we see somebody, ask people how they're doing. Inquire. Maybe give somebody some kind of advice. Always encourage people. Tell people how much you love them. Don't wait till it's too late to feel that love and to feel the fault and to feel the blame and to feel that you're angry, the anger. Talk to people, encourage them to share with you what's going on inside of them. Give them the feeling that no matter what happened is, no matter what's going on there, no matter what the difficulty is, you're here for them. You're here for them. We are here for our neighbors. We are here to be there for our community. Listen. That's our obligation. You're not allowed to stand while the blood of your fellow is being shed. That's what God said. I am the Lord. I am the Lord, and I tell you to be holy people, and I tell you to to go out of your way, not only to be kind, not only to be nice to somebody, but to save lives. Guys, we can save lives. We can save lives by the very fact that we encourage people, that we tell people, no matter what happened, no matter what the reasoning is. And I want you to know, I'm not talking about now about people that commit suicide because they're going through an emotional illness, people who are in depression, people who are in some kind of schizophrenia. These people need professional help, and these people are sick. They have cancer of soul. People who are going through a depression, or people who are going through mania depression, and these people need support, a professional support, and these people, sometimes it's almost impossible to save their lives. But they need a doctor. It's an illness. But people who are right now in a specific feeling of depression, and a specific feeling of anguish that they don't know how to save. Guys, we're here to I'm trying to concentrate. I know the questions are very important, but I'm trying to concentrate on how we today, in these days, can save lives. How we today can go around and find out our neighbors who are lost their jobs, who find out people who have to feed children, and people who are making wrong decisions, and they're paying with their lives. Guys, it's our obligation as godly people. Yes, people who need help from a psychiatrist have to go to a psychiatrist. We're not psychiatrists. People who are in a severe illness of depression, of schizophrenia, of post-trauma, all these people, they need a psychiatrist. They need help. Encourage people that are in this situation to get a doctor, because psychiatric illnesses are illnesses like any other illness. But I'm not talking about those cases. I'm talking about right now. When somebody is confronted with a dead end, when somebody feels the only way to solve his issue right now is to take his life in his hands. These people, if they know that we are there for them, we can save their lives. And please inquire, ask. This is what the Torah tells us. This is what we are obligated. We are obligated to find out how our friends are feeling. We're obligated to inquire how our neighbors are doing. We're obligated to find out how the guy, our barber who lost his job right now, how he's doing, how is he managing? And maybe we'll find out. Shalom to Andrew from Malaysia. We're inquired, we're obligated to find out and inquire and listen. We have to listen. The Torah tells us it's not a matter of being kind. We are obligated. Shalom. Shalom. Perfect society. That's the perfect name. We have to be a godly, holy society. We have to be a godly, holy society. And we have to bring upon the world the light of the Lord. And the Lord taught us. He is holy. We have to be holy. He created man in his image. And it's our obligation as a society, because God created humanity in his image. It's our obligation. Shalom. Thank you so much for the love. Thank you for the love from everybody. But guys, it's not me that needs the love now. It's our friends. Please, right after you listen to this lesson, think of 5 people that are in your area, in your community, that maybe they're right now facing a difficulty and you don't know what they're thinking of alone when they're at home alone. Call them up. Tell them no matter what you need, I love you, no matter what you need, and talk. Bring up the issue. We will try to help you. We as a society, thank you. Thank you so much for all the love from everybody. But guys, we need the love of God to give to our neighbors. And that's what God obligated us to do. Please, as soon as I'm finished, go around, inquire, a few friends, find out how they're doing, encourage them, tell them how much you love them, and give them the feeling that no matter what's happening, you're there for them. And I'm saying to you also, if somebody here who is listening is in a situation of distress, and he's even for the very shortest time considering doing something which is without real true responsibility for society, believe us, that's never the solution. Suicide is not the solution. The solution is talk, share it with others, your needs, and people love you. Believe me, I've seen and I've visited people who have committed suicide. You're always going to find people who are angry and people who are feeling the fault. And shalom, and thank you, Beverly, shalom, and please share with all your friends. Please, please, please. It's not for my sake. It's to save lives. We can really save lives. And God wants us to be holy people. And God wants us to be people who were created in his image. So all the people who have joined me today, shalom from Jerusalem. I love you so much. Please, please, please share this with others. Give space for others' for other needs, and tell others to express the feeling. And it's our obligation as a humanity to be a godly, chosen people, a godly people who were created in his image, a holy people, because that's what God told us. And we who have God, and we who have the Lord with us, we know that that's our responsibility. Saving lives, saving lives. Shalom from Jerusalem to everybody. Thank you so much for being with me today. And please share this with others. Love you all. Shalom from Jerusalem.